Okay, so breaking down the next step in creating an ad. So we already did the campaign. We went over all the objectives there. Now we're getting into the ad set. Now, this is really where the bulk of what you're going to do exists. So I just chose the objective conversions simply because there's an extra step in the conversions than anything else. And for conversions, which you won't have in a lot of other objectives, is to choose your custom conversion, right? And so maybe I want to do lead. And simply because that's what's showing up there. All the rest are red, which means it's not firing. Green means it's firing. It's good to go. And usually you will get a set of conversion objectives already created for you that you can choose from, but they're going to be red. So it's going to be like, how are we, we can try to optimize for this, but there's no way it's going to be tracking. So green is good, right? Green's good. Red's bad. I'm sure everyone's used to driving, so they understand, green means go. Let's think of it that way. Obviously, you have an app, then it's connected to that app. And then Messenger, then it's connected to that page. Plain and simple. All right. Offers, if you have specific offers, you can create them and just come here and create it. For the most part, you're always going to leave this alone. Most people never mess with this. I don't even mess with it, right? There's other ways to play that whole offer game that are a lot better than doing it that way. So it's up to you if you want to dive into that more. And definitely hit me up offline. That's not something that I really want to break down for you guys and spend the time going over. So here you create your new audiences. You can go choose your saved ones that you have. Okay. So remember how we've gone over how to create a saved audience. So more than likely, you're going to want to go in there and choose that saved audience. It'll automatically pull it up right in here, just like that, right? So, and it's funny that I pulled this one up because you see how we have behaviors, and this is something I'm going to dive into later in more of the advanced modules. But since I brought it up here, I want to show you. So the behaviors I have matching here. So I have interest. Okay, they're interested in Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce, WooCommerce. So ages 30 to 54, Canada, US. But I mean, you could have, a male age 52 interested in Shopify that doesn't even know what Shopify is, right? So then I've said, okay, they have to match this. Plus, they also have to match behavior of Facebook page admin. Plus, they also have to match behavior of have 10 to 49 employees, 50 to 99, and be an executive seat. So the majority of this is going away. Just mind you, it's funny that it's still saved in here, but it is actually going away. Facebook's getting rid of all that stuff. So that's why I wanted to point that out. Funny story. We'll see it happen in real life later on. Okay, so then for custom audiences, like if I have custom audience, I can choose that. Or I can just build out my audience directly in here, right? And I like to come through here and basically just put a set of eyeballs on everything no matter what. I'm not a huge fan of this right here. Number one being is if I'm targeting interests, like if I'm targeting people interested in dogs, people interested in cats, I'm not just targeting that. I'm targeting that plus a bunch of other things because usually I want my audiences to be no more than about 2 million. So I'm not ever really going to hit this. Even though it says, hey, may lower cost per conversions, I've seen this happen before where you have this selected and it goes completely out of bounds with your interests. Now, I've never done it for conversions. So if it works for conversions, test it out. But for the most part, I like to just check this off, mainly because I like to have control over everything I'm doing. Not only that, if we're running this, unless you have like a third-party system like Quia or Espresso, you won't know what's doing that, what's making it tick, right? What interests people are interested in. You were basically, in a sense, since you're creating this audience and then putting it in here, you are testing that audience to see the results from that test. So if we add in expand interest, then who knows what we're testing, right? So keep that in mind. Connection types. So we can get a little crazy in here too. Sometimes if we're running engagement stuff and I just want to engage people who like the page or people who's friends with people who like the page, or maybe I want to exclude people who like the page, right? Like maybe I'm trying to get more people involved in the page, and so I want to exclude people who like the page. Or I can also run engagement ads that target friends of people who like the page. And then if you've ever seen those ads where it's like sponsored, but then up above it will show like your friends who like it. And it's sort of that social proofing that will make you more likely to like it as well. So cool little trick. You can do it that way. Same thing with apps, events. Events are good too, right? So for friends so like if someone said, yes, I'm going to this event, you can run an event ad. And then for people who are friends of those people, so let's say if it's like a concert or something, then you can show them, be like, hey, so-and-so is going to this concert, are you? And so that's a good way to get them involved. Now let's talk about placements. For at the end of the day, like if you're just doing testing, feel free to do automatic placements. It's funny that it says recommended here, because I would not put recommended there. It's Facebook put it there because it's the easiest way for them to take your money. More than likely, if you put your ad, or if you choose that as a placement, you're going to get audience network, because when it starts optimizing for things, like if it's optimizing for clicks or engagements or anything like that, the cheapest everything in essence is going to come from audience network, but it's also the cheapest of everything comes from audience network. What I'm saying is, if you're trying to get conversions from audience network, it's not going to happen. If you're trying to build an audience off audience network, that's tough too. So more than likely what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to edit all of your placements. Not only that, everything we're doing is testing, right? So we go back to that. So we want to have control over everything. So for the most part, if I want to run Instagram ads, I run Instagram ads. If I want to run Facebook feed ads, I'll run that. I'll turn all these off, right? Audience network, I'll definitely turn that off 99.99999% of the time. Messenger ads, turn those off too. So the difference between Facebook and Instagram, obviously, the two different platforms. The way people engage a lot more on Instagram. Not only that, is your buyer on Instagram, right? And then not only that, but what stage are you in? Are you in awareness building stage, consideration, conversion? What stage are you in? And that will also determine where you should be showing as well. So if I'm doing top of funnel stuff, I'm just trying to build an audience, I might play around with audience network. For the most part, I'm going to stay away from that no matter what. That audience, I've always found, is just not high quality enough no matter what. So I try to stick with Facebook feeds, Instagram. I'll play around with Messenger sometimes as well. But for that top of funnel stuff, we deselect audience network. Okay. Now we get into engagement and those things. That's when I start coming in and I start unselecting these. And maybe I'll have Instagram, maybe I'll have Facebook, but more than likely what I'll do is I'll have two different ad sets. I'll have one ad set running Facebook feed only, and I'll have one ad set running Instagram only. That way you can see the difference. What will happen is, if you choose that objective, like let's say you're running something cheap, like $5 a day, $10 a day, the objective will optimize, right? So let's say if it's clicks or if it's engagement, it will optimize, but it will also optimize for your placement. So you will not necessarily be able to test properly the difference in your feeds between Instagram and Facebook. So that's why I say use different ad sets that way. Now, when we break down the platforms, I usually like to stick with feeds too. Marketplace has been fun to test. More people have been involved, like just getting in the marketplace, but I'll usually turn that off as well. So it's just strictly in the feed. So here's where I usually play, especially when you start getting into conversions. And then even then, so I'll stick with like Facebook feeds, and then this is what I'll test. I'll test the difference between mobile and desktop. So I'll turn one of these off and run it in that ad set, and then run mobile in a different ad set, right? Because what will happen is it'll go back to optimizing, right? And so you will not know the difference in the pricing. Even if you're running, $50 to $100 a day, it's not going to run evenly. It's going to optimize as soon as it hits pay dirt. It's just going to run with it. Now you could have gotten cheaper options on the other side of things, or even better, if you would have went desktop than mobile, but you will never know. So that's why I say, instead of letting it do its thing, kind of take control over it and kind of force it to do what you want it to do. Then watch the numbers come in. Daily budgets, obviously this thing always starts out at $20. It really depends. It's up to you. Here's what I say. You can run $5 a day if you want. It's just going to take you more days to accumulate the data, because that's really what you're doing. You're accumulating data, and with that data, you're making decisions. So if you spend $5 a day, it's just going to take you longer to accumulate the data. That's all, right? Not to say like, hey, if your whole budget's $100, not to go spend $100 in one day and you're going to get the correct data. No. Usually what you want to do is you want to take your budget, you want to divide it by a total of 3 days. That's about how long it takes for Facebook's algorithm to optimize. So if your budget is $100, I'd spread that over about 3 or 4 days. Whereas instead of just spending it all at once, right? Because you need the algorithm to really optimize and get into it, and kind of decipher things and run its own tests. Same thing. It doesn't matter if it's $100 or $100,000. That's how you kind of divvy things out. That way you can test and collect data and then make decisions off that data. I'll get more into bid strategies later, in more advanced stuff. Here, you see this is when you get charged based on impression. Crazy thing about conversions is that sometimes they charge CPM, right? You used to be able to do it differently, but now this is how it works. So with conversions too, right? We'll deliver ads, so you can go off of link clicks, landing page views. This means they clicked over and waited for the whole page to load before it triggers a landing page view, and this is conversions. Obviously, if you're going for conversions, go for it. For your 7-day click, 1-day window, that means that they've clicked within 7 days, viewed within 1 day, or that, right? So this can get convoluted too. These are your attribution windows, and I'll talk more about these in depth. But basically, you have 1, 7, and 28. 1-day click, 7-day click, 28-day click, 1-day view, 7-day view, 28-day view. And this is just determined by the data that Facebook collects, and then at what points, at what stages in time that it optimizes that data, right? I know that sounds confusing, but I'll explain it in more detail later. Just leave it at 7-1. That's fine. Back up here, you can set a schedule if you want. For when it starts, when it ends, if you want to do it that way. You usually understand too that when you set up an ad, on average, it's been taking something like 2 to 3 hours before the ad's actually being shown, even after approval. So if you set up the ad, you get it going, and it goes into review, and then they approve it. It'll take about 2 to 3 hours. Before it was a lot quicker. Now it's about 2 to 3 hours. So keep that in mind when playing with your schedules. Make sure you get it into review and into approval before you want it, like at least a couple hours before you want it to go out. And so, yeah, when you go through this, when you see different things, like if you're running, traffic campaigns, engagement campaigns, brand awareness campaigns, you'll see this will be different. Reach campaigns will be charged for reach, not impressions. And then ad scheduling, run ads on a schedule. So this can become more difficult too. I'd say just leave this alone for now. I will show you how to do this. There's some methods in which this is very important. However, you have to have a lot higher budgets to be able to shut the ads off and turn them on over and over and over again. And then delivery type, obviously, I always go for standard. If you want to go for accelerated, be my guest, test it out. It's basically going to take your budget and spend it as quick as possible. And that's not going to help you out at all. So just, at the end of the day, just go for standard. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's, a couple of cool things now is you can block specific people, lists, places, things like that, categories too. This is a cool little trick, is if you're just aiming for mobile devices only, and maybe it's an article or something, try testing the difference between only when Wi-Fi is connected and when it's not. Usually, if people are going to purchase a product, they'll need more time to do that. And in order for them to have more time, they'll usually be in a place or setting in which they do have Wi-Fi where they have more time. Whereas it's very unlikely that they will make those decisions that quick and be able to purchase something while walking, on the train, on subway, or whatever it is. So keep that in mind as well. All right.